Hey, welcome back to my channel. I just got back from an awesome vacation and I really miss my blender. That's such a terrible nerdy thing to say, but I figured this would be fun just to do some kit bashing with my latest kit bash product that's on my Gumroad account and on the Blender Market, and see what I come up with, as well as teach you some tricks along the way that pertain to kit bashing in general, Blender in general, hard surface modeling, and some material stuff. This is the first thing you'll see when you open the product. All the pieces laid out in front of you, and they're not in the center of the grid. That is because I reserved the center of the grid for actually building my spaceship. That's personally what I like to do. And I don't know why this view is so wide angle. If you find that your view in your 3D viewfinder is too wide, or maybe the opposite, too narrow, you can press N to get your side panel, open up, click on view, and change your focal length to 50 or 100 or 35. Those are kind of some common ranges. I'm going to do 85, so it's kind of a flatter, tighter angle, because a final render is going to be usually pretty tight. Most spaceship renders are used with a very long focal length to give the impression of size, like you're looking at this from far away with a telescope or some zoom camera in space, and makes it look bigger. So anyway, let's put our 3D cursor in the middle by pressing Shift C. It already is, but if it isn't for you, now it is. And I'm going to look at my body pieces over here and see which ones I want to start with. This one right here is, I think, was my first piece I started building, and it is directly inspired by The Expanse. In fact, a lot of these pieces were made while I was looking at concept art and similar aesthetics to The Expanse, if not the actual spaceships, which are incredible. Great show. So I'm going to grab that. I'm also going to connect this piece. I'm holding Shift, by the way, and selecting these. And with my spaceship kit bashes like this, I like to first select the pieces I am interested in, and then we're going to duplicate them and then move them to the center. And I'll show you what happens after that in just a second. Okay, maybe some support beams, some framing, and of course we got to get a big old engine, and some kind of docking hatch there. Okay, so once I got my pieces selected, which is these, I'm gonna right click to undo this or press escape. I'm going to Shift D to duplicate these. If you plan on editing the originals that are going to stay here and having your pieces you're building with change while you edit these, like you edit this one, but the one over here changes, then do Alt D to make a linked duplicate. But if you plan on modifying what you build over here, but not changing the originals, which I kind of suggest, then let's do Shift D to make duplicates and hit enter. And the duplicates are on top of the old ones. So if I press G, you can see they're on top, but I want them to be over here. So an easy way to move an object or multiple objects to the 3D cursor, to the 0 point on your grid, the middle of your grid, or zeros right here, X, Y, Z, just press Alt G, which resets the location. If you have rotated something, let's say I've accidentally rotated them, and I know that if I reset my rotation, it'll go back to how I want, you can press Alt R, which some of these, it changes the angle because they're actually rotated over here. But Alt R will reset your rotations to all zeros right here. Alt G will reset your locations to zeros. And I assume Alt S will fix your scales to ones. I've never used that before. So now that I've got everything over here in the middle, I can start moving things out of my way, kind of clearing like, the Lego floor, right? Pretend like you're just basically building with Legos here. And everything is still, at the 0 point in the middle. So you kind of have to shuffle things around. I like to keep my main pieces zeroed in on the main axis of my ship, which in this case is Y. If you look up here, this little gyro thing, gimbal, what is it called? Gizmo, I think. I forgot. Y is the green line. So my ship's axis is along Y. Okay, we got my engine. I'm going to move it back here. I'm going to rotate it. RZ180, enter. So I just flipped it around. This is also probably going to be rotated. RZ180, enter. We got a hatch. I know there's another hatch in there. There it is. Oh, there's a cool plate. There's another thing, looks like a sled. And there we go. That's all our pieces kind of exploded there. So let's start building this thing. This is going to be my main front piece of the ship. So I'm just going to keep it there. I want this piece to connect on top of it. So I'm going to press numpad 3 actually to get a side view, and just G and just move it to where I want. And a lot of these pieces, I'm going to say pretty much all of them, are very scale neutral because there's not really any identifying features that you know are a certain size. You know, there's no like lettering, there's no doors, there's really not a whole lot of windows. So they're all very scale neutral. So I can shrink this down to here, or I can make this really big. You know, it's really, I try to make it like that on purpose. So you can, you know, scale things to how you like and what you feel looks good. Press 7 for an above view. And by the way, I will be rendering this in cycles, which looks best, but all these pieces still look really good in Eevee. Okay, actually it's a little big, a little weird. I'm gonna shrink it down and put it in this little spot here, little pocket. I try to leave open spaces, you know, like this and over here, so that you can add stuff that you make yourself or parts that I have created. I'm gonna put this one on the opposite side, so 3, move it here, R180. When you're at a flat side view, you don't really have to type in a axis if you want to rotate it like this. See, it rotates perfectly on, what is this, the X axis, because that's the side that I'm looking at it from. So move it up in here, scale it a little bit, move it up. If you have a mouse wheel on your mouse, rolling it up and down for me is the zoom in and out. And then if I click and move my mouse, it's the kind of the rotates your view. Now that may be a preference thing. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is. So if you are finding really weird controls or you want to change something, go to preferences and input. And there's a lot of stuff here that will affect how you control things. Oops, let's go back to 3D view. Okay, so we got that. We got a cool port here, and I want this port to be, there's some more space on this guy. Let's put the port on here. And just to be rebellious, I'm going to flip this around, which I don't think I've ever done. And maybe even size it up, connect it, move it right in there. That looks cool. It's nice and plugged into that octagonal shape. Okay, this dock or hatch or whatever will be there. And I feel like this is too big. If people are going to come out of this thing and really give the impression of size, I want it to be, you know, around that big. Let's make sure it's not disappearing too far into the ship. There we go. And if you want to duplicate something symmetrically, perfectly, with very little effort, instead of like actually copying it, rotating it, moving it, then there's a really easy way. Go to your object, go to modifiers, add a mirror modifier. And then here's this trick here, this is the last one we add right here. Click on the eyedropper for mirror object and select the object that you basically want it to rotate around and just get the right orientation. There we go. So this needs to be on the Z axis. And this is the central axis. The center point of this object is where it's rotating around. So if I move this, look at that, it moves too. So I can slide this over here, over here. I can edit it, change whatever I want. This one is the exact same because it's mirrored. It's a mirrored object. So that's nice. Let's put this guy on this piece here. So move it up, move it down. There we go. Cool. And I'm going to mirror that as well. Just in case my renders from below, I still want there to be detail. If you put all your detail on one side, it saves you time, sure, and it's easy, but you're really limited on your camera viewport. You're limited on your camera angles. So I like to be a little more authentic and, you know, Z, there we go. By the way, you do have multiple axes. So like I can do 4 axes and have basically a cube of this shape. That's with all 3 axes turned on, but I only need Z. And let me get back to where I had it right in the middle. There we go. Okay. Got this cool antenna. Let's put this on one side. Let's do some asymmetry. I'm going to connect it to this thing here. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. This is very much inspired by the Rocinante from Expanse. There's a very similar sensor array on the front that sticks out. And I really like that. There you go. Cool. Also, I love this panel. Let's decorate this thing with it. So let's put, let's put that here. Shrink it a little bit. Move it down. And let's copy that to the bottom part. Mirror. Let's get rid of, these are the ones for the modeling, so don't mess with those. There we go. See what they do is they duplicate the whole thing around itself because I modeled only this piece. And then boom, boom. Looks like I did a whole bunch of work, but I only did a quarter of the work. Okay, cool. I love this piece here. There's a lot of things you can do with it. It can work kind of as wings or as struts to hold thrusters. A lot of possibilities. I'm going to size this up to where it matches the size of that piece, like the same width. I don't want it to collide with the shape, so I guess that's good enough for now. Cool. And let's put 2 of these thrusters. This is supposed to just be 1, but we can do 2. And we're going to mirror it again to save us some time. And if I adjust things in the future, I don't have to also adjust the other copy that I made. Oh, look at that. I already had an X. Cool. Make sure it's actually connecting into the pieces and not just floating there, because someone will notice. Awesome. Let's put some little cage thing back here for maybe another thruster or something cool. And these are kind of multi-purpose, like storage and or crew, quarters if you want to like stack them together, or just industrial space storage units. So I'm going to plug a bunch of these into the side here, and I'll show you another trick to use the array modifier to save you some more time. So RY90, and I do want it to be more small. So move it in, move it up here. I'm going to try and array this along these squares up here so it all just kind of lines up. So maybe 3. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so here's the trick. Go to modifiers, add your array. Boom, boom. And we need us to go that direction. And you can either put them completely next to each other or give a little bit of spacing. I'm going to hold shift, click on Y and drag out like this. And actually, I want these to be small. I want them to really be lined up like this. A little bit bigger. A little bit bigger. There, guys, good enough. So use your array modifier to add a bunch of copies. And then you can do the same mirror trick we just did earlier. Mirror, I think it's on the X, and use this spaceship chunk of piece as the center axis. Awesome. There we go. Now we got some cool external storage things going on. Looks pretty nice to me. This is a similar design, but just a different shape. So, you can put those somewhere else in the ship, maybe a bunch back here. I'm going to put it to the same scale, though, just to make things consistent. So I'm going to try and scale this down to the same size as these guys. Right about there. Same width. There we go. Okay. Move this here. 7 for an above view. Oh, it's definitely not on top of the ship. There we go. Press period to center your view on an object. And when you rotate around, it rotates around that object, which is really nice. Now, if you want to copy the modifiers from one object like this to this one, you keep your target one selected first and then hold shift and select the other one and press Control L, and then you can choose modifiers or materials or anything. However, that's going to mess with things too because it copies all the modifiers to this one. So if any measurement, anything is different when the polygons, it doesn't line up with the mirror modifier, it'll cause problems. So I don't want to do that. So because they are different meshes, and I tried it earlier, it didn't work. So I'm going to use the array, again, the wrong direction. It's always the wrong direction. Here we go. And I used, what did I use? What distance? 1.06. So, you got to be super consistent. 1.06, because everyone's going to notice that. And no one will like me after that. All right, cool. And again, more work for myself, but just to make it helps me sleep good at night. There we go. Nice. Lots of storage, because when you're in space, you got to take a lot of stuff with you. Or maybe you're collecting things. We got some support panels here. I just saw a cool space to add them would be right here. And then maybe also add them somewhere else to have a little bit of design, aesthetic consistency so that things just, look the same all the way through across the ship. And instead of using a cool piece somewhere only one time, try to have a little bit of repetition, but not too much. So I'm going to set this in here. Gonna put it just below the surface. That looks cool. And these are made using arrays. So look, I can shrink it. Oops, wrong direction. Is that good? Yeah, that's good. Cool. So you can shrink it or enlarge it with using that. And then let's do mirror modifier based on this object. Now look, it's across the X, which is good. But what about down here? We can do Z. So X and Z, kind of hard to see. If I change the texture, it'll be easier to see. Let's put it as a darker metal. There we go. That looks cool. It'll contrast against that aluminum. So speaking of the textures, in this sci-fi pack, one of my favorite things about it is the texture. I worked really hard to give a lot of control with minimal work. So let's open up the shader panel and see what we can do to this messy, dirty looking spaceship. So this is the Warren ship Hull 3. This is the main one though, right here, that you'll see the most commonly. So I have these colors here you can plug in just in case you want to change it. This is like the original orange, and this is an original blue that I used. To do that, you may not have noticed, but you can actually click and drag a color into another color box, and boom, look at that. Did you know that? Now you do. Cool. So I use that in some of my example renders. You can also do whatever color you want. So let's do like a dark, dull green, because I don't see that much in spaceships. Kind of a not so saturated medium green, kind of army color. And then let's make the accent color like a dull yellow. So right now the accent color is using ship hull 3. So let's put yellow. Looks kind of orange to me for some reason. Maybe it's the metallic of the texture, I'm not sure. Now let's look at what options I got in the textures here. So I'm just going to zoom in so we can see a few different geometries right there. Now let's make sure we select the green one, which is Warren ship hull. We can change the scale of the scratches. So if this is a small ship, like a little personal, carrier, you're probably gonna have large scratch and dents like that. You're gonna want the details much smaller like that. Now it does come preloaded with this image texture. You can use whatever texture you want. And if you want to get even fancier, you can use some other node groups to untile that image so it looks less repetitive. But it looks pretty decent right now. We've got panel scale. So there are actually some very subtle panels. So built into this Blender file are the texture images, like the scratch one, but there's also a texture image that I made myself that comes with a blend file. And if you turn up panel to color, that sends the panel, image data to the color portion of the shader. So if you want it more subtle, you can, kind of do that, do some micro details. You can also scale this by making it real small, or you can make it really big panels. And the same image data for the panel pieces is also going to the bump. And if you turn that up, then you get this really nice gritty bump of the actual, panels. So that's a nice way to add some little details there. You can also turn the scratch down if you don't want it to be scratchy. You want to be nice and clean. You can turn down scratch to color or turn it all the way up. That is totally up to you. But I'm really feeling this dirty, worn in, imperfect spaceship look thanks to the Expanse. It's a little bit more realistic and believable. So I'm gonna keep it nice and dirty. And I did fix the accent color here to make it more yellow. So let's go and play with that guy. Well, these do have separate controls. So I'm going to add in some panel details there, some bump, and maybe a little bit more scratch to that one. Make the scratches a little bit bigger. We do have a spaceship hull number 2, which let's make this maybe a lighter green. Would be kind of cool. That looks nice. I like that. Oh, cool. I don't think I've ever made a green spaceship before. There we go. Lots of bump. So it's very greebly there. And let's add another engine to kind of fill in this center gap. It's sort of empty. RZ180, period to zoom in. Move it ka-chink right in there. Maybe that's the hyperdrive or sublight engine to make it, get from planet to planet. Like I said earlier, I have a lot of places you can add stuff. Like these little platforms here are great for adding antennas or satellite dishes. These things along the side here, you can add greebles or attachments. If you want to add the control center on the front, there's 3 different cockpits here. And this piece actually fits really nicely into the octagon shape. I'll show you how. So Shift D, Enter, Alt G, and then period. It's right here in the middle. So here, I'm going to press number 1 to get a front view. And I need to size this down to fit in this corner right here. There, and then we're going to mirror it with a mirror modifier based on this shape and Z. There we go. Now it's not perfect, so we need to hold shift while we move. It's too far out here, so move it in. There we go. That's a cool front piece right there. I like it. Oh, one last thing before I finish this. The warp tunnel. How did I forget about this? All right, so let me hide the kit bash pieces by turning them off. Oh, it's actually the pieces here. There we go. Oh, I forgot one last thing. The warp tunnel. Are you ready for this? Isn't that awesome? It's fully animated and procedural. You can, of course, change the speed on everything. But before we get to playing with that, I do need to clean up this scene real quick. So we're going to put this ship we just built into its own collection. So I'm going to turn off my warp tunnel real quick. B for box select, grab all these pieces, press M, new collection, and ship design. There we go, or whatever you want to call it. I already have some pre-made ships in here. So like I've got ship number 5. One of the example renders on my Gumroad account uses this. There's also this one with a jet engine on the back. There's that one. It does have a procedural thrust that's really cool, and that's actually from one of my other products. And here it's a freebie. Watch this. So I turn my render on. Give it a second. Oh yeah. Volumetric, emission, procedural shader, and animated too. Can't really tell in this view, but it's animated. So those are all included. Very fun to play with and learn from. So we got this in its own collection, which means we can hide the original pieces back here that we don't want. Bye-bye. And now let's turn on the warp tunnel. Awesome. So if I click on the warp tunnel and go to my shader here, there is a lot of controls. I try to keep it simple, but I just couldn't stop myself. So we've got, where is it? Warp speed on the bottom. Hold shift and drag up. It's very sensitive. Careful if you're photosensitive and have seizures. I'm sorry. This is a little bit, motion sickness there. Let's slow it down a little bit. Nice and chill warp tunnel, you know, for vacations. Noise speed is how fast the noise itself evolves. Really fast or not at all. There we go, kind of in the middle. We can elongate the stars. We can change how many there are from small, medium, and large stars, which are layered. There's how turbulent it is. So low turbulent is nice and soft noise. High is, it's crazy. Let's turn it down. I like that. Noise scale is how big the noise is. Really large. Oh, that's pretty cool. Or smaller. Haze is kind of this cloudiness that you see. Get a better view. It's this stuff over here in the black. So haze scale. It's kind of just a cloudy added layer for stuff. There's a star warp, which is how warped the stars are. Are they circles like that, or are they stretched, which is around 397 gets a nice warp, and how warped is the noise. If you do this number, we got this really cool like Stargate thing going on. I like that effect. That looks pretty cool. So yeah, lots of fun. Oh, and there's, of course, you can color it. You can customize the colors by going into the shader and finding this guy and or changing the hue, which just changes everything together. And I'm not sure why there's not a hue control on the shader out here. I will fix that and update this product ASAP. But yeah, loads of fun. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much for watching, and please subscribe to my channel so I know you guys like what I'm making, and I'll make a lot more of it. Now, while this is definitely not the coolest looking spaceship I've ever made, I hope that you grasp the possibilities of a kit bash set like this. And for those of you who purchased it, thank you so much. If you're interested in getting it, you can find it on the links below in my Gumroad account. And I hope that you have fun building stuff with it and learn something from it. If you make a render you're proud of, go ahead and email it to me. I love to see what you guys have built. And you guys have been sending in renders through my Instagram account and my email. And that just makes me warm and fuzzy deep down inside to see that you guys are making cool stuff. Thanks for watching. Have a great week.